Okay, awesome. Thank you, Anna. So yeah, today is just going to be a strategy session, and we're going to just walk you through the MCAT. And if you're just starting to study for it, or you have been, you can just learn some new tips and what we recommend. Okay, and oh, sorry, you can't see that properly, but I will send our listserv again at the end. Okay, so you probably already know what the MCAT is about, but it is a test for medical school and is over 7 subjects and takes over 7 hours to complete. And it is one of, the important aspects of admission. So you really want to prepare your best for this test. And we know a lot of prep courses cost, thousands of dollars, which is not super helpful. And sometimes, they don't even really help you and personalize what you need. So that's kind of why we started Premed Peers. We really want to help students do well and not have to spend the most money. So we're a nonprofit, and we're all students, so we're all just trying to give back to the next generation.
Okay, yeah, so adding on to what Sim is saying about Premed Peers, we're a nonprofit, so because of that, we're able to offer a lot of the same services that other companies are offering, but for a much more reduced price. That makes it a lot more affordable. So, some of the advantages that we came up with are that not only do we have an affordable MCAT prep course, but we also um, introduce you to mentors and a study group, and we help you to make a personalized schedule that helps you keep up with your studying. So, one of the things I actually wanted to mention, like in my personal experience buying a very expensive MCAT course, the issue is that if you can't afford to shell out thousands of dollars, you end up buying the cheapest one that you can afford. And then in those, you only get a basic package, and unfortunately, then you don't have access to a mentor or a personalized schedule. And then that's the main thing, having someone to be accountable to and keep up with you and check in with you, for me personally, was probably one of the most important factors for sticking to my study schedule. So that's why we came up with a program that from the day one, we give you a mentor and a study group to keep up with. So this is a little bit about our prep course. So we have a few different versions to select from. So first of all, our free MCAT prep, these are essentially free live sessions that we conduct several times a month by our volunteer tutors in different topics. And, sometimes we'll do a strategy session, such as the one that you're attending now, or we'll do live passage practice, and you really get to see how students and tutors who've actually scored in the 90th percentile figure out how to get through a passage. And then the actual courses that we offer, we have a self-directed option and a live prep course. So the self-directed one is great because you get all of the recordings already there. So someone who, for example, knows all of the content from physics classes 1 to 3, and they don't need to wait a few weeks as you would in the live course to get to physics class 4. Well, you can just watch it whenever you're ready for it. And you can, and similar to our live course, you have the ability to purchase a personalized schedule, as well as access to the tutors to ask questions and gain mentorship. Now, with the live course, it's a little bit more involved. We are actively engaging with our students. You get to come to class every single day, ask questions as the class is being taught, and there's obviously a different benefit to that. And again, you have a study group, mentorship. You can always go back to watch your recordings.
And yes, we also have our next prep course starting in November. So if you are interested, you can also use our promo code 10 off to, save some more money.
And aside from free and reduced cost tutoring, we have a bunch of other services that you can take advantage of to help you get into medical school. So I already mentioned the personalized MCAT schedule that can be purchased for only $15, and one of our volunteers would reach out to you, have a Zoom call, and ask you very personalized questions about how much time you can dedicate to your studying, so that you and what resources you have access to come up with a plan that works specifically for you. And on top of that, we have our application consulting program, which is also a very valuable tool for you, because we do personal statement edits with actual med students. We pair you up with a med student mentor who can give you feedback on your essays. So currently we're in, it's later in the application cycle, so we're conducting edits for secondaries and as well as getting ready for interview prep. And these are actual medical students who've just gone through this. So you're in pretty good hands. So, and then aside from that, we have our mentorship, and that's available to everyone in all of our programs.
Sorry, we also have our application consulting trial going on. So if you are applying to medical school this upcoming year, you can also try that trial out and see if you like how we're doing the workshops and helping with secondaries and personal statements as well.
And here are some of the testimonials from some of the students that we've worked with. A lot of them really enjoy, the very personalized access to materials and recordings and tutors. So here are just some of the comments that they've had. You can feel free to read through these. So now getting into the actual strategy, there's a couple of steps you need to take before you even begin your studying. And that's, in my opinion, going to determine the course of your study. So it's very important to do these. So I broke it down into 4 steps. Before you do any studying, the first thing you have to do is take a diagnostic exam, because without that, even though diagnostic exams are typically half-length exams, you're welcome to take a full-length exam. To determine where you stand, but you're not going to know how much learning you need to do until you actually take the MCAT test and see where your score falls. So the absolute first step, in my opinion, would be to take a diagnostic exam. If you have a pretty high score to begin with, then you already know that you don't need to study for that. So basically, that would determine the length of time that you study for. And then you can decide your MCAT date. So let's say you scored like a 510, so you already know that to get to a 520, you don't really need to do a lot of content review, or you have a high chem score but a low bio score, so you know which subject to focus on. So that will really determine what you study and how you study. So that's a really important first step. The second thing you want to do is gather your resources. Now, that obviously depends on what you can afford, what you have access to. So, some of the things that go into the resource aspect is, what books are you going to use? Are you even going to use books for content review? Are you a visual learner and you only want to watch videos? When are you going to buy the AAMC material? Do you want to use UWorld? There's a lot of free resources out there now. So SIM is going to cover some of those, but gathering your resources is going to be an obvious next step before you get started studying. Now, the third thing is you want to set your goal score, because I realized when I was studying that if you don't tell yourself that I want a 510 or a 515 or a 520, you're not going to take the steps necessary to get there, because you don't have an exact goal. So it's very important to set that goal and remind yourself of it every day. If you have to write it on top of your desk, like, okay, 520 is the goal or 510 is the goal, whatever it is, it's just basic human psychology. It helps you achieve your goals when you, write them down. And then the last step would be to finally decide on your MCAT date. Because like I said, knowing your diagnostic, what resources you have, how much you need to cover how many questions you need to do, how much time do you have with other responsibilities like being in school, working in a lab, working as a medical assistant, all of the things that you're juggling as a student. You only after looking at all those can you determine how long you actually need to study for the test. And then in between, while you're scheduling everything, you want to make sure that you are taking care of your mental health. You're staying in touch with people, friends, your hobbies, because it's very easy to get burnt out and then not achieve your goal. And then another general thing you want to keep in mind is that the more full lengths you do, the better your practice will be for your MCAT exam. So we recommend doing at least 5 to 10 because then you'll really have experience with the material. So now once you've decided on your MCAT date, that's when you're going to sit down and think about your schedule, like day-to-day schedule, and which times of the day you're going to study. So let's say, figuring out, are you a morning studier? Are you going to study at night? Are you going to study only on weekends? Those are things that you have to come up with a schedule to figure out. And another thing is you want to rotate subjects each and every day just to keep everything fresh and so that you don't burn out, because that's a very common thing when you're studying for hours on end and you're seeing the same material. It actually can be very demotivating in a sense. So we have an example here. So let's say Mondays you do biochem and cars, and then Tuesday you do psych soc plus cars. Once you rotate things, it keeps things fresh and it actually improves your understanding of the whole subject as well. And in general, we recommend cars in particular. I would also recommend psych soc in your daily practice. But cars is something that unfortunately you cannot study for hours in order to improve. You simply have to actually take cars passages. And the best way to do that is to, incorporate them, either at the beginning of your study or at the end. But you want to do a cars passage at least one per day. And then also in regards to the schedule, your schedule is the most important thing, right? Because achieving a goal requires a plan. And so that is where we help students out and we meet with them personally to come up with that. So if you guys are interested, you can definitely email us or visit our website, premedpeers.org, to find out about that. Next slide. I also just wanted to talk generally about how to structure your study day. When I was studying, I didn't see people post about this. You look up, like, I would look up things like how to study, like how to get through a Kaplan chapter. Like no one would really help with that. It seemed like people didn't have the same struggles as me. For me, getting through a chapter took a whole day, basically. I'm just not a reader. So, and I would lose motivation very quickly. But after a lot of figuring out, I finally gained a little bit structure that helped me make actual strides and progress in my studying. So what I mean by that is, when you start off, you in the morning, let's say it's like 6, 7 in the morning, or whenever you're starting, sometimes it's hard to get into like really difficult physics equations and complex biochem pathways right away, especially, just starting out the day. So the way I like to structure my study day is do a little warm up, light studying. It could be, doing a timed cars practice session or just reading through the Khan Academy Psych Soc doc, getting through an Anki deck, reviewing your old notes, any type of almost passive studying, but something that just warms you up without burning you out. So you do that, and you do that with, decide on, let's say 50 minutes of study time, 10 minutes of a break, 50 minutes study time, 10 minutes break up until lunchtime, and then you get started again. And then once you're all warmed up, you want to get to obviously your main study for the day. And that, as we mentioned, you rotate your subjects, you do your content review, however it is that works best for you. reading and incorporating questions would be the most effective way of learning the material. And then lastly, instead of just, once you're done for the day, just leaving everything and just going off, it's, in my opinion, it's better to cool down in a sense, because it's just like like a muscle building activity. You're training yourself to sit there and study and learn all of this over a long period of time. So if you just leave, you kind of just, you don't have any organization to your study. So the way I like to end my study day is a cool down. You, same thing as in the morning, you just do some type of passive activity that helps you engage with your material, so that you don't simply walk off. So again, it could be reading a review sheet, reading your own notes, and also you can even watch videos on the topics that you studied. So a helpful thing would be, for example, physics topics. It's hard to visualize that kind of stuff just by reading about it. So let's say you watch some YouTube videos. There's a lot of great YouTube channels that help you actually see physics concepts. So you end the day with a little bit of that. And to me, that's a very successful study day. Next slide.
Yeah, I love that. I just wanted to add, like, I definitely agree with that. And also the thing that you mentioned about like reading. So you definitely want to find like maybe if reading is not like the best way you retain information, you could find some videos instead, or like some mnemonics or anything that might help you. So you just want to, learn in the best way possible for you. So I think that was a really great point. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to kind of like breaking it down into phases. So we kind of want to, phase one, you want to review all your content. So especially if you've been outside of school for a while or took these classes a while back, you probably should, go back and refresh your memory. So these are some of like the books that a lot of people use, but we're listing both pros and cons to them. So a lot of people use Kaplan. It can go really in depth, so you just want to be careful with the stuff that you're trying to memorize in there. There's also not a lot of practice problems in the books themselves. The Princeton Review does have practice passages after each chapter and 3 full lengths included with the book, which is really nice. But some people have noticed that the biochemistry book is not that well written. And I've also put some other information about other companies. I personally haven't used them, so I don't know, but those are just some other options. And again, if you don't like to read to get your information, Khan Academy is another great resource to watch the videos. Or you could also even use our videos and just learn from them. So the second phase is where you're going to start incorporating a little bit more practice and start working on those weak subjects and topics. We definitely recommend getting UWorld. It is a great third-party resource, and the passages are really well written along with the explanation. So I would really recommend looking into that. It can be a little expensive, so we do have a discount with them. So if you do need any help getting that, let us know. But yeah, a lot of people have used UWorld and they've done really great in the past. I think they also have a free trial, but if you are just starting off, you can use Khan Academy for the free passages, or even Jack Weston. I know he added in also science passages as well, additional to CARS practice. So I would definitely start incorporating, maybe like CARS from Jack Weston each day and start doing other, practice problems as well, just to make sure you're understanding how to apply that information. I definitely think in the practice, that's when you're going to start to notice like what you're getting wrong and what you need to work on more. Okay, so practice. So this is the final step where you really want to go into your dedicated period and crack down on the double AMC material. So this is when you really want to start doing your practice double AMC material, and they have a lot of great questions, and I think they have a section bank, a few other question banks as well. So you really want to understand all of those questions and answers, because these are the test writers. So you really want to understand how they're writing the questions and how they're going to kind of, make that real MCAT test. So you also want to use these scores kind of as where you are. You sometimes like third party exams are really hard to gauge and they might be deflated. So you can use the double AMC material and their exams to see if you need to push back your test or something like that. So yeah, so full length. You really want to be strict about these, and you want to do. I would recommend doing 5 to 10 before your actual MCAT, just to build on your stamina and routine. So you want to be strict about timing and do these under the realistic timing and test conditions. So I think there's only several breaks allowed. So try not to go over your break time. If you only have like 5 minutes, don't take 20, because on your real MCAT, then you're going to be flustered and you really want to build up that practice and think like you're going into the real exam. And then definitely like at least 1 month before, you want to start taking those exams each week at the same time. So I think they're around 8 a.m. So even if you're not a morning person, you kind of want to train your brain to work and be awake and working around that time. And especially after each practice exam, you want to go over every question and every answer choice, which can take a while, but it's really important because you want to understand, how you were thinking while you were taking the test. Because sometimes you're like, oh, I understand this, but you might get it wrong during the actual exam. So you want to make sure, even if you get it right, you understand why you got it right and you weren't just guessing. And something that really helped me was logging all of my mistakes. So maybe I was missing a couple of questions in like a physics topic. So I would write those down. I would review those more and go back and review that topic again. That really helped me really brush out my weak areas and improve on those. It's not going to work just, hoping for the best that this topic doesn't show up on the exam, because it might. A lot of my exam was all orgo. So, orgo was not my favorite topic, but I still had to take the time to go through all of those questions. Okay, and I think that's all I have for full length. So yeah, so general study tips. So you want to, do the practice problems when you're going to be actually taking the exam. Make sure you're starting to think like that. Um, Start keeping a journal or a review sheet of everything you are getting wrong and try to review that often so you can see what you're getting wrong. I think in cars, that's definitely something that helps, because sometimes people keep making the same mistakes over and over again and they're not noticing why they're making those mistakes. So in cars, it's really helpful to write it down. For example, I was missing a lot of history passages and a lot of inference questions. And then it took me a second to realize I was bringing in my own knowledge and all of my history, knowledge. So I needed to put that all aside and, make sure I'm only focusing on the passage. So writing it down can kind of help you picture it better and also improve your score. And then, so what I mean here by dedicate at least 2 hours, it's just so, you get in the zone, you block out that time. So it's kind of like a class. Make sure you're telling everyone you're busy, you don't make plans during those times, because it's really easy to, be like, oh, I'll study. But then if you don't block out that time, it's really easy for other things to take up that space. Okay, so use practice passages sparingly and when you're confident. So what I mean by that is, if you're not, at least in the midpoint of your content, like at least 50%, it's going to be really difficult because the passages incorporate multiple subjects. So it's not like if you're doing physics, a chemistry question might not come up on there, or something biology related. So you want to be able to kind of know a little bit of, all the material when you're doing these passages, because they really interrelate the topics a lot of the times. Okay, and then I think this is going into like definitely more cars. If you're between two answer choices, we go a lot of this in our car sessions, how to really, avoid like picking the wrong answer, if you're stuck between two answer choices, what to do, and all of that we go in depth in our car session. So if you are struggling in that, definitely look into coming to those sessions as well. Okay, and last but not least, if you don't know something, that's totally fine. Just make sure you go back and look it up, try to understand it because it might come up on your actual exam. Um, and for those of you who don't know what Anki is, it's a really great app that is flashcards that are spaced repetition. And for long-term things like, studying for the MCAT, it can really help you remember, especially like those key terms in psychology and biology, all of those things like that. Anki is really useful. So I would really recommend it. And we also have a document with all of our free resources on there, and that has a bunch of Anki decks that we recommend to download. Okay, so only study when you want to. So, studying is not always passive. So if you're not in the mood, it can really be detrimental to you. So you really want to study and make sure you're motivated. But that being said, you're not going to be motivated to study all the time, but you want to definitely build that discipline. So a strategy that I use was I would set a timer, if I'm not in the mood, but maybe I'll do 10 minutes. And once I'm in the zone, those 10 minutes will easily turn into like 30 minutes. So those are some tricks that you can use. I know MCAT studying is always not fun, but you can try to, do small tricks and things. I would also recommend, finding friends who are studying for the MCAT so you have some more motivation and you can ask them questions. We also have our Slack group, which you can use to find study buddies or, anyone else that you might want to talk to. And our tutors are on there as well. So if you need any help or any guidance, you can always reach out to them on Slack as well. Okay, so what questions do you guys have? And I'm sorry, I think, do you want me to go back? Did you have anything else to add to these general study?
Yeah. So yeah, like basically I actually really want to reinforce two of the things that you said because I think they're like they will make or break your score. So number one is don't pretend to know something when you don't. And that's something that you mentioned. And it's all about facing your fears because there's a lot of anxiety and um, just general distress surrounding this exam. But unfortunately, if you avoid your problems until the MCAT, then it's too late. So I would definitely say, and I mean, I have um, actual experience with this that, you know, I was strong in biochem and I hated chemistry and physics. So I would only go to studying bio and biochem. For me, that was like a fun session. I just loved studying it. And what I ended up doing, and it showed up in my MCAT score, which I wouldn't want you to have, is there's a huge discrepancy between my chemistry and physics score and my bio and biochem, where I kept strengthening my bio and biochem even more. And my chemistry and physics was just, staying where it was. So I definitely would agree that you have to face your fears. And even if you don't want to, you have to find a way to study the subject that you hate, even if it's a little bit each day. And then the other thing that Sim mentioned um, was finding friends and a study group. And one of the ways that I would recommend that is even if you don't have a friend who's taking it or you don't have someone who's on the same plan as you, there's a lot of YouTubers who are recording their vlogs, studying, and for me, that was like a support system. Watching other students study for the MCAT, that's what I would do in my lunch breaks, and that motivated me to keep going. And thirdly, I wanted to add that just remember you cannot use the same strategy to study all of the subjects. They require a different type of way of thinking, a different skill. Studying for physics and chemistry and orgo requires a very different method than cars, and bio and biochem has a different method than psychology and sociology. Some of the subjects are very passive. You just need to memorize. The psych soc is one of them. It's very passive. You just need to memorize as many definitions as you possibly can. And physics, it's, you have to manipulate variables and be good at math. So, if it works for you to study physics the way you would study bio, then that's great. But I really doubt that the subjects would take the same method. And so you have to be conscious of that and do what it takes to study each subject appropriately. So those are some of, I think, the most important things to keep in mind for your MCAT journey, and we're here to support you with that. So if you guys have any questions, you can always let us know right now, or you can email us and we'd be happy to answer them. Our email is info@premedpeers.org. Sim, do we have a slide with that?
Yes. So here's some more information, and that's our email and website. And I will email you guys a different code that you could use for our live prep course in November. So I will send you all of that after this.